12. Cottage garden perennials. You need to sow in September, zones 310. Hello, dear friends, and welcome back to Earthly Delights. If you're here today, it means you already have a love for gardening that runs deeper than just planting seeds. You're someone who dreams of filling your home and garden with lasting beauty, who wants flowers that return year after year, and who finds joy in nurturing life with your own hands. You might be that curious beginner who just bought their first seed packet, or perhaps a seasoned gardener searching for budget-friendly ways to create a cottage-style paradise without breaking the bank. Either way, you're in the right place. September may feel like the winding down of summer, but in truth, it's a hidden window of opportunity, a time when the soil is still warm, the air is crisp, and perennial seeds can quietly take root beneath the surface, preparing for a glorious show next spring. Imagine walking through your garden a few months from now, surrounded by blooms that not only light up your borders, but also invite bees, butterflies, and even hummingbirds into your space. In today's video, I'll share 12 cottage garden perennials you can sow this September. Plants that thrive in zones 3 through 10, perfect for anyone longing for a garden that's wild yet elegant, colorful yet timeless. So grab your notebook or a warm cup of tea, and let's journey together into the world of flowers that keep giving year after year. And before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Earthly Delights, so you'll never miss a chance to transform your garden into a sanctuary of beauty and peace. 1. Baby's breath, the gentle clouds of your September garden. When we think of timeless cottage gardens, one of the first flowers that comes to mind is baby's breath, or Gypsophila paniculata. It's delicate, airy, and carries with it a softness that turns any garden into a dreamy painting. You've probably seen it tucked into wedding bouquets or gracing simple jars on a kitchen table, because its tiny blooms create that cloud-like effect that makes everything else around it shine. But what makes it truly special for us as gardeners is its reliability. Sowing it in September gives the plant enough time to develop a sturdy root system before winter arrives. By spring, it will burst into growth, ready to cover your borders with gentle waves of white or soft pink. For those of you who love cut flowers, this plant is a gift that keeps on giving. Imagine stepping outside, scissors in hand, and cutting a few sprigs to soften your indoor arrangements. Suddenly, your living room feels like a celebration. And the best part? Baby's breath is tough. Hardy from zones 3 through 9, it doesn't ask for much beyond a sunny spot and well-drained soil. Whether you're gardening in a small backyard, a cottage-style plot, or even containers on a sunny balcony, it adapts beautifully. And for my viewers who want gardening to be both beautiful and budget-friendly, this is one of the smartest choices you can make. Sow it once, and you'll enjoy its gentle charm year after year, while welcoming pollinators that will make the rest of your garden even more alive. Baby's breath isn't just a flower, it's the quiet backdrop that makes your garden feel like home. 2. Meadow rue, the elegant whisper of the cottage garden. If baby's breath is the soft cloud of the garden, then meadow rue, or thalictrum, is the gentle whisper carried on the breeze. There's something almost magical about this plant, the way its feathery foliage sways, the way its airy blossoms seem to hover above the stems as if suspended in light. When you plant it in September, you give it the chance to quietly settle in, stretching its roots before the cold sets in. By the time spring returns, it's ready to rise gracefully and claim its place in your borders. What I love most about meadow rue is that it offers cottage garden charm in places where other flowers struggle. Unlike some perennials that demand full sun, this beauty is happy in partial shade. That means if you have a corner of your garden that never seems to sparkle, or even just a balcony with dappled light, meadow rue can be your answer. It doesn't shout for attention. It lingers softly, adding depth, texture, and an almost mystical quality to your garden. For those of you who dream of creating arrangements indoors, meadow rue also makes a surprisingly elegant cut flower. Its stems, topped with clouds of blossoms in shades from lavender to creamy white, bring a lightness to bouquets that pairs beautifully with bolder blooms. And just like baby's breath, it's hardy, zones 3 through 9, making it a reliable companion for gardeners across many climates. So if you've ever wished your garden could feel a little more ethereal, a little more enchanted, meadow rue is your plant. With September sowing, you're not just planting flowers, you're planting atmosphere, the kind that makes people pause, breathe deeply, and smile when they step into your space. Part 3, Yarrow, the bold healer of the cottage garden. Now, as we move deeper into our September garden, let's talk about a flower that brings both strength and beauty, yarrow or acacia. Unlike the delicate airiness of baby's breath and meadow rue, yarrow stands firm, with flat-topped clusters of blooms that glow in shades of gold, pink, red, and antique white. It's the kind of flower that immediately draws the eye, grounding your borders with color, while quietly doing so much more behind the scenes. When sown in September, yarrow takes its time to form a hardy foundation, and by the following spring, it bursts into life with vigor. Gardeners who've struggled with plants that fade too quickly will find a loyal companion in yarrow. It thrives in poor soil, it laughs at drought, and once it's settled, it spreads generously, sometimes almost too generously, which is why many of us love to share clumps with friends or move it to new corners of the garden. But what makes yarrow extra special is the way it serves both people and pollinators. Bees and butterflies swarm to its clusters, making it a centerpiece of any wildlife-friendly garden. And for centuries, yarrow has been known as a healing herb, adding another layer of richness to its story. For those of you who see your garden not just as decoration, but as a living, breathing sanctuary, this flower ties beauty with meaning. Imagine cutting a few stems of yarrow to place in a vase indoors. They last, they hold their color, and they bring that rustic cottage feel into your home. Hardy across zones 3 to 9, yarrow belongs in nearly every gardener's plan. By sowing it this September, you're planting not only a flower, but also resilience, generosity, and a touch of timeless tradition in your own backyard. Order 4, Hummingbird Mint, the fragrant magnet of life in your garden. From the bold presence of yarrow, we glide into the world of fragrance and movement with hummingbird mint, also known as agastache or anise hyssop. This plant is like a beacon in the garden, sending up spires of blooms that hum with activity all summer long. If you've ever wanted your garden to feel truly alive, this is the perennial that will make it happen. Sowing it in September means the roots can anchor deeply before the chill sets in. So when spring warmth returns, the plant explodes with growth and quickly becomes a centerpiece of color and scent. What makes hummingbird mint so enchanting is the way it engages all your senses. The leaves release a sweet, anise-like fragrance when brushed against, and the flowers come in purples, pinks, oranges, and blues, offering a palette to suit any mood or style. But it's not just you who will fall in love with it. Bees, butterflies, and of course hummingbirds will flock to its nectar-rich blooms, turning your garden into a sanctuary buzzing with life. For those of you who garden in smaller spaces, perhaps on patios or balconies, hummingbird mint thrives beautifully in containers. And for those with wide borders, it adds vertical lines and waves of color that carry the eye through the garden. It's hardy too, with many varieties enduring as low as zone 3, though some are only safe in zone 5 and above. That's why September is the perfect time to sow, giving you a head start to choose varieties that suit your zone before the winter rest. So if your dream is a garden where fragrance fills the air, where every bloom seems to invite winged guests to join the party, hummingbird mint is the answer. By planting it now, you're preparing for a spring and summer alive with sound, scent, and endless beauty. 5. Hollyhocks, the towering sentinels of the cottage garden. As the fragrance of hummingbird mint lingers, our journey leads us to one of the most iconic flowers of any cottage garden, the majestic hollyhock. Tall, striking, and often leaning against old stone walls or peeking out from behind wooden fences, hollyhocks have long been the sentinels of village paths and garden gates. When you sow them in September, you're giving them a crucial head start. Their roots will strengthen over the cooler months, and by the time summer arrives next year, they'll rise proudly, sending up dramatic spires of blossoms that command attention. What's captivating about hollyhocks is their variety. From single open blooms to double-petaled pom-poms in shades of pastel pink, rich burgundy, lemon yellow, or even near black, they offer endless possibilities for gardeners who want to paint their garden with vertical strokes of color. They're also wonderfully generous. Once you've introduced hollyhocks to your space, they self-seed freely, ensuring that year after year, they return to surprise you in new corners, almost as if your garden has a will of its own. For those of you who see gardening as a way to create atmosphere, hollyhocks carry nostalgia and storytelling. They remind us of childhood walks past old cottages, of timeless English gardens, of the kind of beauty that feels effortless yet deeply rooted in tradition. Hardy across zones 3 through 9, they adapt to many climates, though they always appreciate a sunny spot and room to stretch. And beyond their visual drama, hollyhocks are friendly to pollinators, offering nectar to bees and butterflies alike. By sowing them this September, you're planting more than flowers. You're planting memories, the kind of blooms that future visitors to your garden will always remember. Hollyhocks don't just decorate a space, they define it. 6. Delphiniums, the dramatic spires that touch the sky. From the rustic charm of hollyhocks, let's move to a flower that brings pure drama and elegance to the garden, the stately delphinium. These towering spires, often shimmering in shades of blue, violet, white, or even soft pink, have a presence that feels almost regal. When you sow delphiniums in September, you're giving them the chance to establish strong roots before winter. By the following summer, they'll rise like pillars of color, commanding attention in any border or bed. Delphiniums are beloved, but they also ask us for a bit of patience and care. Young seedlings in particular are a favorite snack for slugs. Many gardeners, myself included, have felt the heartbreak of watching tender shoots disappear overnight. Yet, with a little protection early on, perhaps a simple cloche or recycled bottle cover, you can safeguard your plants long enough for them to gain strength. Once established, delphiniums reward your care with breathtaking towers of bloom that seem almost too beautiful to be real. For viewers who dream of a true cottage garden atmosphere, delphiniums are essential. Their vertical lines balance the softer, lower-growing flowers, giving your garden structure as well as color. They also make stunning cut flowers, perfect for adding height and drama to arrangements indoors. Hardy down to zone 3, these plants thrive in cooler climates, though in hotter regions they may appreciate a little afternoon shade. Planting delphiniums is a leap of faith, a gardener's act of hope. But when they bloom, it feels like the sky itself has dipped down to touch your garden. By sowing them this September, you're setting the stage for a display next year that will stop you and anyone who passes by right in their tracks. 7. Columbine, the playful charm of Granny's bonnet. From the towering elegance of delphiniums, we move to something gentler and more whimsical. The columbine, even affectionately called Granny's bonnet. There's something almost storybook about this flower, with its delicate, nodding blooms shaped like tiny bonnets or fairy bells. When you sow columbine in September, you're planting the promise of early spring magic. By the time your tulips and alliums awaken, columbine will be right there beside them, filling the garden with splashes of color and charm. Columbine is a flower for dreamers and those who delight in surprises. Its blooms come in so many variations, from soft pastels to rich jewel tones, with long spurs or short ones, doubles or singles, that no two plants feel exactly the same. They seem to carry a playful spirit, scattering their seeds and popping up in unexpected corners of the garden year after year. For many of you who want a space that feels alive and slightly wild, columbine brings that touch of spontaneity. And yet, despite its delicate look, columbine is tougher than it seems. Hardy across zones 3 through 9, it survives drought, adapts to rainy springs, and thrives in both sun and partial shade. For wildlife gardeners, it's a gift. The early flowers provide nectar to bees and hummingbirds at a time when food sources are still scarce. Indoors, their unique blossoms add an enchanting twist to spring bouquets, instantly catching the eye. By sowing columbine now, you're not just preparing for another perennial. You're inviting a bit of wonder into your garden. Next year, when those first clusters of blossoms appear, you'll be reminded that sometimes the smallest flowers bring the biggest smiles. Columbine is proof that a garden isn't just a collection of plants. It's a collection of little joys waiting to unfold. 8. Canterbury bells. The ringing notes of cottage charm. From the playful spirit of columbine, let's drift toward a flower that feels almost musical in the garden. The Canterbury bells, or campanula. Their large, bell-shaped blooms stand tall on sturdy stems, as if announcing the arrival of summer with a gentle chime. Sowing them in September gives these short-lived perennials the time they need to build strong foliage and root systems, ensuring that by the time spring and early summer roll around, they're ready to put on a grand performance. What makes Canterbury bells so enchanting is their versatility. In shades of blue, purple, pink, and white, they light up the middle of borders, adding both color and form. Watching bees crawl inside the bells is pure delight, a reminder that these flowers aren't just for us, but for the life that depends on them. And for those who love to bring the garden indoors, their tall stems and dramatic blooms make them ideal for cut flower arrangements, lending elegance and a sense of abundance to a simple vase. Although technically short-lived, Canterbury bells rarely disappear. They self-seed freely, scattering their future across your garden without much effort on your part. Before long, you'll find them popping up in new spots, adding to that natural, slightly untamed beauty that defines a true cottage garden. Hardy from zones 3 through 10, they're as adaptable as they are beautiful, thriving in both cooler and warmer climates. Planting Canterbury bells now is like planting echoes of joy for the future. When their blooms finally open, you'll feel as though your garden has found its own voice, each bell a note in the symphony of colors and textures you've been patiently cultivating. They're not just flowers, they're little chimes of happiness scattered through your garden. 9. Sweet William, the timeless blooms that never run out. From the bell-like grace of Canterbury bells, we now turn to a flower that feels both familiar and endlessly generous. Sweet William, or Dianthus barbatus. These clusters of frilly, jewel-toned blossoms have been adored in cottage gardens for centuries, not only for their beauty, but for their reliability. When you sow Sweet William in September, you're giving it the perfect chance to take root, rest through the winter, and then burst into bloom with vibrant energy in late spring and early summer. There's something deeply satisfying about Sweet William. Each bloom is made up of dozens of tiny flowers, like a choir singing together in harmony, painting your borders with shades of pink, crimson, purple, and white. And once you have them, they seem to never leave you. Sweet William self-seeds generously, so while each plant may technically be short-lived, the flower finds a way to return year after year, weaving itself into the very fabric of your garden. For those of you who dream of filling your homes with flowers, Sweet William is a treasure. Cut stems last for ages in a vase, their spicy, sweet fragrance lingering in the room long after you bring them indoors. They also pair beautifully with other cottage garden classics, adding depth and a touch of old-world charm to arrangements. Hardy from zones 3 through 9, Sweet William adapts easily, thriving in sunny spots with well-drained soil. For the budget-conscious gardener, this is one of the smartest choices you can make, because once it's in your garden, it keeps multiplying, gifting you color without asking much in return. By sowing it this September, you're planting not just flowers, but a tradition of abundance and beauty that will continue to surprise and delight you season after season. 10 to 10, foxgloves, the enchanted spires of the cottage path. From the cheerful clusters of Sweet William, we step into the enchanting world of foxgloves, or digitalis. These are the flowers that feel almost otherworldly. Their tall spires covered in rows of tubular blossoms that seem to glow in shades of pink, cream, apricot, or even pure white. When you sow foxgloves in September, you're aligning with their natural rhythm. As true biennials, they grow foliage now, rest during winter, and then rise in the following summer with a display so striking, it feels as though the garden has put on its finest gown. Foxgloves have a way of creating atmosphere like no other flower. Place them along a path or at the back of a border, and suddenly your garden feels like a scene from a fairy tale. Bees and pollinators love them, often crawling deep inside each bell-shaped bloom, turning every spire into a buzzing tower of life. Though technically short-lived, they ensure their legacy by scattering seeds freely, self-sowing with ease. Once established, they'll surprise you by reappearing year after year, often in new corners, keeping the garden dynamic and alive. For indoor arrangements, foxgloves bring elegance and height, making them favorites among cut flower gardeners. And for those of you gardening across zones 3 to 9, their adaptability makes them a reliable choice, provided they have partial sun and a little protection from extreme heat. Sowing foxgloves this September is more than planting flowers. It's sowing a little enchantment, a touch of drama, and a gift to your future self. By next summer, when their spires stand tall and proud, you'll be reminded of how a single act of planting in autumn can transform your garden into a space of magic and wonder. 11. Shasta Daisy, the garden's ray of sunshine. From the mystical towers of foxgloves, we move to something cheerful, bright, and instantly familiar, the Shasta Daisy. With its crisp white petals and golden yellow centers, this perennial is like a burst of sunshine planted right in your garden. Sowing it in September gives the young plants the chance to settle in before the cold sets in, so that by the time summer arrives, they're ready to bloom with strength and confidence. What makes the Shasta Daisy so beloved is its simplicity. It doesn't need to be flashy to make a statement. Its charm lies in its clean, classic beauty. Place it in your borders, and suddenly the whole bed feels brighter. Cut a few stems to bring indoors, and they light up any room with their fresh, optimistic look. For those of you who long for flowers that embody joy and ease, the Shasta Daisy is the perfect companion. And it's not just about looks. These daisies are hardy, thriving in zones 3 through 9, and they don't demand much beyond sunshine and reasonably well-drained soil. They're drought-tolerant once established, making them a reliable choice for gardeners who don't want to fuss over constant watering. Their blooms arrive in waves, often stretching well into summer, ensuring your garden keeps its lively spirit for months. For pollinators, the open faces of Shasta daisies are a feast, attracting butterflies and bees alike. For you, they're a reminder that beauty doesn't have to be complicated. By sowing Shasta daisies this September, you're planting a promise of joy, a flower that will greet you year after year with a sunny face, lifting your spirits every time you walk through your garden. 12. Echinacea, the resilient heart of the cottage garden. From the bright optimism of Shasta daisies, we arrive at a flower that blends beauty with resilience. The echinacea, often called coneflower, with its striking daisy-like petals in shades of purple, pink, white, or even orange, in its bold, spiky centers, echinacea is a plant that commands attention while asking very little in return. When you sow it in September, you're giving the seeds the cool, gentle conditions they love to germinate. And by next summer, you'll be rewarded with blooms that stand tall and proud, no matter what challenges the season brings. Echinacea is a gardener's ally, especially for those of you who want plants that are as tough as they are beautiful. It thrives in poor soil, tolerates drought, and comes back stronger year after year, making it an anchor in any border. For pollinators, it's irresistible. Bees, butterflies, and even goldfinches flock to its flowers and seed heads. For you, it's both a visual delight and, for some, a herbal treasure long valued for its traditional medicinal uses. Imagine walking through your garden on a warm July afternoon, the sunlight catching the fiery glow of echinacea petals, while butterflies dance around them. Indoors, these flowers bring a rustic elegance to arrangements, their bold centers adding texture and contrast. Hardy across zones 3 through 10, echinacea is adaptable enough to suit nearly every gardener watching today. By sowing echinacea this September, you're planting more than a flower. You're planting resilience, vitality, and a sense of grounded beauty. It's the kind of perennial that not only fills your garden with color, but also reminds you that strength and grace can grow side by side, season after season. Sowing September's promise for a garden that lasts, and there you have it. 12 incredible cottage garden perennials, each with its own story, its own charm, and its own way of making your garden feel like a living work of art. From the airy clouds of baby's breath to the resilience of echinacea, these are not just plants. They are investments in beauty, in joy, and in the seasons to come. By sowing them now in September, you're giving yourself the gift of a garden that will not only bloom next year, but will return year after year, stronger and more beautiful each time. What I love most about this season is the sense of quiet preparation. While the world outside begins to slow, your garden is quietly working beneath the soil, roots stretching, life preparing to burst forth in spring. It's a reminder that patience in gardening always pays off, and that the smallest seeds can lead to the most breathtaking displays if given the right start. So now I want to hear from you. Which of these perennials will you be sowing this September? Do you already have a favorite that returns faithfully in your garden each year? Or are you excited to try something completely new? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I love reading your stories and learning how your gardens are growing. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to Earthly Delights. Here, we celebrate the beauty of gardening together. Whether you're nurturing a tiny balcony garden or tending a sprawling cottage plot, you'll always find tips, inspiration, and encouragement waiting for you. Until next time, may your hands be in the soil, your heart be light, and your garden full of delight.